still alive, huh? I've got grandkids now and life is sweet." Looking at my mom, Emery, my dad, Carter, let out a loud and crude laugh. After leaving us, Carter married his mistress. Since then, he had a son, and recently, even a grandchild it seems. He proudly introduced his own family. Then, he started to passionately explain how much better his life has been since leaving Emery. "In contrast, you're living this meager life in a shabby hotel, working part-time. Truly pitiful." His mocking tone is as obnoxious as ever. "It's been a while." I glared at Carter. Then, Carter looked surprised. "Could it be Amelia? This is great. Both of you working together in this old hotel. Must have gotten into debt to pay for medical bills, huh? Tough life paying that back." Drunk, Carter rambled on with his wild assumptions. Just as I was about to retort, Emery, with a calm voice, stopped me. "Amelia, no. He's a guest, after all." "What are you talking about?" Ignoring Carter's heckling, Emery firmly faced forward. Then, she declared, "I'll introduce you to a company that's been around for 17 years, and a daughter's family." "Huh?" Carter looked dumbfounded. Following that, Emery shared facts that left Carter speechless. "My name is Amelia Jones. I just turned 20 the other day. While most of my peers are still students, I'm already working. I wake up at 5 a.m. every day, ready to head to work. I work at a hotel. Countryside Hotel is the name of the hotel where I work. Currently, it's our busy season, so like many others, Countryside Hotel is bustling. After taking over from the night shift, I quickly get started with the morning tasks. After a while, Emery came by. "How's today?" "Busy, but I'm still okay," I answered with a smile. Actually, Emery works at the same place. Due to a severe illness in the past, Emery tries not to work long hours. Being able to work here together and help Emery has been the greatest joy for me. As noon approaches, more guests start to check in. I took my place at the reception. As I processed one family after another, a family of 3 came in. They seemed close-knit. Watching them, I felt a pang of sadness. Because I don't have a father. My parents divorced when I was very young. I barely remember my father, Carter. But from the stories told by Emery and my grandparents, I know what kind of person Carter was. He was a terrible person. What he did to our family is unforgivable. Back when I was young, I lived with Carter and Emery, who was frail. Since my birth, Emery had not been well and spent a lot of time in bed. "I'm sorry, Amelia. I can't do much as your mother." I remember Emery saying this, tears in her eyes. As days went by, Emery's condition worsened. At the time, Emery's illness was considered incurable, and the prognosis was grim. By the time I was 3, Emery had been given a terminal diagnosis. "It can't be helped. I know my own body best." Emery was a nurse before she got married. Having seen the fate of others with the same disease, it seemed she was prepared for the worst. As for Carter, he easily abandoned Emery. It turned out, Carter had a mistress. Emery rarely talked about this, but my grandparents filled in the details. Amidst caring for Emery, to relieve stress, he started going out at night. He found a woman he liked at a pub he frequented. Carter chose the other woman over Emery and left us. The divorce was quietly settled without my knowledge. And on the day Carter left our home, I clung to him, refusing to let go. Even as a child, I must have sensed something. But Carter forcefully pulled me away, shouting, "Get out of the way!" I burst into tears. "Amelia, from today onwards, I'm not your father. You two live huddled together in this gloomy house," Carter said with a smirk. "How could you say such things to Amelia?" Emery protected me, holding me close. Then, Carter spat out with a demonic look. "I'm tired of taking care of you. I want to be free. Don't take it the wrong way. If you're going to hate something, hate your illness." And with that, Carter left the house without looking back. Emery held me tightly, not moving. We cried quietly. It was a terrible story. If it were now, I would have stood up to Carter. But back then, at 3 years old, there was nothing I could do. My mother and I were at a loss. Afterwards, we came to live with my maternal grandparents. Because it was difficult for Emery, often bedridden, and me, barely 3 years old, to live on our own. Thankfully, my grandparents took on the burden of caring for Emery and me. I could only be grateful for that. However, Emery's illness remained as severe as ever. The only chance of recovery lay in the latest treatment methods. However, they were expensive. My grandparents, living on their pension, didn't have that kind of money. If only there was some savings. Didn't you have any saved up? There are some family savings. But that money must be saved for Amelia's education. This conversation repeated many times. I somehow understood that Emery didn't want to spend money because of me. Finally, I couldn't hold back any longer. "Mom, I'm okay. Use it for your treatment. When I grow up, I'll take care of myself. More than anything, I want Mom to get better." I spoke through tears. Initially, Emery refused, but after persistent persuasion from me and my grandparents, she seemed willing to use the savings. I didn't care about school. As long as Emery got better, that was all that mattered. Money, we could figure out something. I think I said something like that. Then, in place of the bedridden Emery, my grandmother went to withdraw the money from the family account. But we were faced with an unforeseen situation. The family savings Emery had been diligently saving were completely gone. The only other person who knew the account's PIN was Carter. The money had to have been withdrawn by Carter. We were devastated. Just when we saw a glimmer of hope, Carter's actions once again stole our future. Even if we wanted to get the money back, Carter had disappeared with his mistress, and we didn't know how to contact him. A police report was filed, but his whereabouts remained unknown. What were we supposed to do? That was when everyone was in despair. Emery received a call from a man. The man, named Jack, claimed to be an acquaintance of Emery's. He had been involved in a major accident in the past and was hospitalized where Emery worked as a nurse. The accident had been severe, leaving Jack with significant aftereffects. At one point, he had given up hope and became deeply depressed. Thanks to Emery's encouragement, he managed to recover. After regaining his will to live, Jack started a business. The business took off, and he achieved social success. Since then, he had kept in touch with Emery, updating her about his life about once a year. When he learned about Emery's situation, he offered to pay for her treatment. We were astonished. Emery felt it was too much and tried to refuse. But Jack insisted. "Thanks to Emery, I was able to recover. I want to repay that kindness." Emery still refused stubbornly. But Jack didn't give up. "If that's the case, there's something I want you to do in exchange for the treatment money," he said. Hearing what he proposed, Emery hesitated. She was unsure if she could do it. But Jack assured her, "You can do it." With those words, Emery decided to accept his offer. This turn of events was completely unexpected. Emery, who we thought had no more options, was able to receive treatment. There was nothing happier than this. But of course, she didn't get better immediately. It took time to return to her original health condition. She had to take a lot of medication and visit the hospital for many years. Finally, Emery recovered enough to live a normal life again. We could only be thankful to Jack. Afterwards, we started working together to fulfill Jack's request. I came back to my senses. I couldn't help but reminisce about the past. I needed to focus on my work. With that thought, I proceeded with one task after another. After guiding a group of guests, it was during that brief moment of respite. "This is a famous hotel, right? Thought it'd be more flashy than this." "Hey, I was expecting something more luxurious." "Well, I guess it holds value for poor people, doesn't it?" A rather rude couple appeared. Both seemed to be in their 40s, with a few children trailing behind. They looked like a family. Nothing particularly unusual. Yet, their vulgar manner of speaking left me feeling somewhat unpleasant. I proceeded to check them in, asking the man for his name. "Smith. Carter Smith." The man responded indifferently. Hearing that name sent shivers down my spine. Smith. Carter? That was my dad's name. Carter, who abandoned me and Emery, someone we hadn't seen in 17 years. To think we'd run into each other here. The woman next to him must be Carter's mistress. Likely now his wife. Her name, if I recall correctly, is Elena. The sullen young boy behind them must be their child. The likeness to Carter is a clear giveaway. Lastly, a girl carrying a baby walked in. Perhaps a sibling? There were 5 of them in total. No doubt about it. Carter was here on a trip with his new family. He hasn't noticed me. Naturally. The last time we met was 17 years ago. I, who was 3 years old at the time, have grown up. Carter leaned on the counter, looking annoyed, and said, "So, when's the meal? I want to eat now." Unfortunately, meals are scheduled for 0 p.m. and will be delivered to your room. What a drag. Can't you make an exception? Other luxury hotels accommodate their guests. I'm sorry, but with the group bookings today, we can't make it any earlier. As I refused, Elena chimed in. Such a stingy hotel. Fine, whatever. I'll just leave a bad review online. It's your loss for disregarding your guests, you know. With that, Elena laughed loudly. I maintained a smile, feeling utterly fed up on the inside. Such vulgar people. They haven't changed a bit from before. True to form for a man who could easily abandon his sick wife and young daughter. I handed them their room keys and sighed quietly. Later, while working on the computer in the office, Emery came by. I debated whether to tell her about Carter's arrival. But there was no use hiding it, so I decided to share. Mom, actually, Dad came earlier. With his new family. Eh? Emery's eyes widened in shock. I briefly recounted what had happened. So, he's still the same, then. I'm going to greet Dad's room, but I'll go alone. You don't have to, Mom. You wouldn't want to see him, right? After a moment of thought, Emery firmly said, No, I'll go too. Eh? But... It's okay. I'll be fine. Emery seemed resolved. As if she had a plan. Together, Emery and I went to greet Carter and his family in their room. Excuse us. As we opened the door, Carter and his company were already drinking beer, evidently drunk. We're waiting! Bring the food already! The heckling started immediately. Emery gestured for me to stay calm and with a smile, said, Welcome to Countryside Hotel. my name is Jones. It's good to see such a happy family.
Huh? You are?
Carter, who had been engrossed in his drink, finally noticed after hearing Emery's voice. Surprise spread across his face. But then, he burst out laughing.
Still alive, huh? I've got grandkids now and life is sweet.
Carter laughed loudly and vulgarly. He went on to introduce his family. He had a son with Elena, Jackson, who was already married. The girl next to them, Caroline. They were both 18. Jackson and Caroline, who were high school classmates, had to drop out and marry due to pregnancy, Carter explained proudly. Caroline was holding their child, Carter's grandchild, named William. Carter continued to boast about how much better his life has been since leaving Emory.
In contrast, you're living this meager life in a shabby hotel, working part-time. Truly pitiful.
Drunk, Carter rambled on with his wild assumptions. I couldn't help but speak up. It's been a while. As I glared at Carter, he looked surprised.
Could it be Amelia? This is great. Both of you working together in this old hotel. Must have gotten into debt for medical bills, huh? Tough life paying that back.
Carter laughed loudly. Elena joined the conversation.
Oh, if it isn't Carter's ex-wife and the charmless daughter.
And she laughed along with Carter. Poor things, being so poor.
Well, we have enough money to travel around like this. Poor people can't afford to travel, right?
She sneered with a mocking laugh. Despite reminding myself that they were guests, my anger was hard to quell. Just as I was about to retort, Amelia, no. They are guests, after all. Emory calmly held me back.
What are you talking about?
Ignoring Carter's jeers, Emory stood firm and declared,
I'll introduce you to a company that's been around for 17 years and a daughter's family.
Huh?
This hotel is managed by me. It has an annual turnover of $1 billion. We've reached this point thanks to our guests and my daughter's family's help. What?
Yes, Emory had started this hotel. She is the entrepreneur and the hotel manager. By the way, I'm also an executive here. The person who provided Emory's medical treatment, Jack, owned this real estate. It was this very land. He had a sentimental attachment to it and didn't want to let it go. However, he felt it was a waste to just leave it unused. So, Jack made a request to Emory, who was hesitant. Once you're well, use this land in any way you see fit. To take the treatment money. And so, after receiving treatment and fully recovering, Emory decided to start managing a hotel. Of course, it was a series of hardships at first. We started with a small motel and struggled immensely with its management. After much hard work, we managed to grow it into a respectable-sized hotel. The hotel gained a good reputation and became popular locally, often featured in media. During the busy season, many people visit from far and wide. We were living a busy yet fulfilling life. Emory proudly stated.
And this is my new family. Executive Amelia and, come over here.
Emory called over a man in a suit who was walking down the hallway. Did you call me, Emory? This is Owen, our executive director. Owen is Amelia's husband.
Nice to meet you.
Owen, looking somewhat confused, greeted Carter. I had just recently gotten married. Owen is 23 years old, 3 years older than me. A talented hotel manager, he was a business student when Emory was featured in the local newspaper. Studying management for small and medium-sized businesses, he came to interview at Countryside Hotel. Impressed by Emory's story, Owen decided to work here after graduation. His effective management strategies soon led to even greater fame for Countryside Hotel. Owen, known for his diligent work and honest character, was popular among the staff. Of course, I was one of them. After mustering the courage to confess, Owen reciprocated my feelings. And recently, he proposed, leading to our marriage. Carter and his family were dumbfounded by us. It makes sense. They had ridiculed us for being poor, never imagining we were the management. Carter's hand trembled with his beer, seemingly overwhelmed with frustration. He glared at us, unable to find the words to retaliate.
What's wrong, Carter? Say something!
Elena prodded Carter. But, possibly sobered up by now, Carter remained silent.
I, too, am as happy as you. Having such a wonderful family and a hotel to boast about, always visited by lovely guests. Compared to that, indulging in luxuries seems like a trivial distraction,
Emery said with a broad smile. Elena could only grind her teeth in response. Following Emery's lead, I stated clearly with a smile. Please, enjoy your stay. Back in the office, Emery simply stated, if you don't speak up clearly, those people will get carried away. That's true. I nodded. However, they were beyond our expectations. By night, complaints started coming in from other guests. Apparently, there was a fight in the hallway between two men. When Owen went to check on things, it seemed that Carter's son, Jackson, and another male guest were having trouble. Apparently, Jackson, who was walking while looking at his mobile phone, bumped into the male guest. Despite this, Jackson did not apologize. Instead, he started to pick a fight. It was about to escalate when Owen stepped in and finally calmed things down. But it didn't end there. Caroline, Jackson's wife, left the baby's diapers around without disposing of them, leading to more complaints. Moreover, they tried to take as much food as they could from the buffet in containers back to their room. They didn't care even when cautioned. It was unbelievable. They had no common sense at all. And their rowdiness didn't stop at night. They kept making noise until the morning, causing guests in nearby rooms to complain, "We can't sleep because it's too loud." What terrible people. There was no choice left. We decided to refuse the Carter family's stay from the next day. The Carters were guests. But that didn't mean they could do whatever they wanted. We also had a duty to protect our other guests. Owen said, "I'll go tell them. They might make a scene if we say that. It's dangerous for a woman, so I'll go." But it seems Owen's attempt was unsuccessful too. Shortly after, the disgruntled Carter family and Owen, making an X sign with his hands, came to the reception counter. Owen whispered to me in a low voice, "Sorry, they wouldn't listen. They're making a fuss, demanding to see the hotel manager." Emery hadn't arrived at work yet. I had to handle it. "I'm sorry, but we have the right to protect our other guests, so could you please leave?" I said it as politely as possible, but it was clear they weren't satisfied. Carter and Elena were whispering to each other. Then, they suddenly started laughing sinisterly. I had a bad feeling.
"If you're going to say that, we'll leave. But in return, make our stay free."
What?
Of course. We were planning to stay for a week. Now, you're kicking us out after one night for your own convenience. And on top of that, you want to charge us? Huh? I should be the one getting compensation.
I was dumbfounded by Carter's unreasonable demand. Elena quickly backed him up.
That's right. Even if you're the owners, business is ultimately about the customers. The customer is God, right? If you don't comply, we'll write all over the internet that this hotel is the worst, right? Jackson.
Elena called out to Jackson. Then, Jackson proudly took out his mobile phone.
Yeah, Mom. I'll record this hotel and spread it. The worst hotel that ignores guest requests.
Jackson began to film the reception and our faces with his mobile phone. Wait, please stop. If this happened, our business would be ruined. I panicked. Then, Emery, who had just arrived at work, came to the counter and shouted loudly.
Amelia! I've called the police!
Thank you, Mom. It seems the only way to calm these selfish people down was this method. Carter clicked his tongue at the mention of the police and tried to flee. But it was too late. Owen and other employees rushed out and restrained the Carter family.
What are you doing? Let go!
I coldly looked down at Carter, who was being pinned to the floor and screaming. The worst kind of person. I never thought you could be so pathetic. A true fool. He was no longer a dad or a guest to me. I was speaking my mind.
What did you say, Amelia?
To your parent.
Parent? I've never once thought of you as a parent.
My cries were met by Carter's yelling. Eventually, the police arrived. The Carter family was being taken away. As they were leaving, Emery, who had been calm until now, shouted,
I am the hotel manager of this hotel. I cannot forgive those who unfairly defame it. Please leave.
The Carter family, looking bitter, were eventually pushed into the police vehicle. And then, the car left.
Mom, that was really loud. I didn't know you could raise your voice like that.
When I said this, Emery responded with a calm face.
Of course. I couldn't possibly stay silent after being ridiculed like that.
Then she returned to her usual peaceful expression. That's so you. Just as Grandpa used to tell me. Owen's words were casual. I felt a bit taken aback. Grandpa. Owen momentarily had a look of regret. But he quickly recovered and began to speak. No, actually, my grandpa was taken care of by Emery when he was hospitalized. That's why I've always heard about Emery since I was a child. She's someone who gave hope to my grandpa's life. I've always been curious. That's why I came to do a report on the Countryside Hotel when I was a student.
Your grandpa is, don't tell me.
Owen mentioned his grandpa's name. There was no mistake. It was the name of Jack, who had paid for Emery's medical expenses.
That can't be. Why didn't you tell me?
Owen slowly said to a shaken Emery. My grandpa hates imposing on others. That's why he asked not to talk much about him. So, that was it. That Owen's grandpa was the one who had paid for Emery's medical expenses. I couldn't hide my shock. After all, it was Emery's diligent nursing that had saved Owen's grandpa. It's a strange twist of fate, but perhaps the connections between people are meant to be like this. I thought to myself. Afterward, the Carters were arrested without much fuss. They had been trying to get discounts on their stays by making similar false complaints at other hotels. Because of this, they had been marked by the police as persons of interest. Moreover, there were other charges against them. Carter had embezzled company money and fled. The Carter family had a habit of overspending. They loved to adorn themselves with brand-name goods and indulge in luxury. Tracing it back, it seems it was the influence of Elena, who was a mistress. The fact that our family's savings were taken out was likely on Elena's orders. To fulfill her desires, Carter had been embezzling money from the company where he had worked for many years. Since Carter was the only one in charge of accounting, he had been able to cover it up until now. However, recently the company started to have audits. Carter, fearing the investigation would reach him, quickly resigned from the company. And then, he left the house with his family. The trip was a big lie. It seems they had been moving from place to place, dining and dashing, and staying without paying. Carter was being sued by his former company, the hotels he had stayed in, and the restaurants he had dined at. Of course, since the family was complicit in the dining and dashing and the unpaid stays, Elena, Jackson, and Caroline were also arrested. The Carter family ended up together in jail. However, William, the grandchild, being just a baby, was apparently left in the care of Elena's parents. The family was torn apart, but it was their own doing. A pitiful end for people drowned in greed. Now, they have plenty of time to reflect on their crimes behind the cold iron bars. Months have passed. I live my days much as I did before. Well, there is one change. It's about time you headed up. I'll take over the rest of the work. Don't overdo it, it's not good for your health, Owen says with a gentle smile, and I nod. In fact, I am now pregnant. I'm going to be a grandma soon. Time flies, doesn't it? Emery says with a laugh. Next year at this time, I will be a mother. I can't quite feel it yet, but there's one thing I'm determined about. I absolutely do not want to put my child through the difficult childhood I experienced. I never want to make them feel that way. I used to envy families that were close. Being spoiled by a kind father, or sometimes being a bit selfish. I longed for such things. But in reality, there was no father like that. Then, it's better to refuse from the start. Meeting Carter again showed me that people don't change that easily. Connections with people are indeed important, but there are also ties that are better off cut. Carter has completely disappeared from my life. Now, even when I see happy families, my heart no longer aches. Because I have my family now. Emery and Owen, and the new baby that's coming. I will cherish them and live my life. In our precious home, this countryside hotel.